All right, here we go. Podcast 1. Hey guys. I should have pool balls here, but it would be so distracting because I'd be moving the whole time. So let's talk. I want to talk to you guys. This is my new thing. Look at my beautiful studio, whatever, bros and broettes. I'm going to start doing podcasts. I'll do some individual like I used to, training and sort of some things that I'm thinking about that can help you guys, hopefully. And then also Irene and I will knock out some of those mental game podcasts too. We'll be able to talk about some things together like we used to, like the old days, and we'll move forward with the new channel. This is sweet. Okay, let's go. What are we going to talk about? That's what my kids always do. It's a new thing for the last few months. Let's talk about fundamentals. Now, fundamentals are irrelevant and fundamentals are relevant. So fundamentals are everything and they're nothing to me. This is me. You can do whatever you want to do and think about whatever you want to do. I'm just sharing you with my thoughts and my experience of going down the fundamental path. So before, about 4 or 5 years ago, fundamentals to me were nothing, zero. I thought as long as I'm relatively balanced and relatively straight, okay, and I'm good to go. And as long as I'm not like stabbing too much or whatever, just sort of like, I didn't even consider smoothness a stroke, and I played over 700. So I never considered fundamentals, really. I took a lesson from Mark Foss, who was a real solid, great regional player and probably over 700 at the time. And this was back in like probably late 80s, probably late 80s. Okay, and he told me two things. He told me about my stance and he told me to have my arms straight. So I'm like, okay. And he wasn't like anything. It was 1 or 2 lessons for a few, for a little bit. And so that became my base. I just did what he told me to do. And so I ended up with a pretty straight arm and pretty good stance. And then that was like 40 years ago, pretty much. And it wasn't until about 3 or 4 years ago that I started working more on the fundamentals. And I've even done podcasts where I've said fundamentals, okay? And I had very good reasoning at the time. The reasoning at the time was because of my experience. I knew how to get from, as an adult, as a child, I got to be really good, just kind of gifted eye-hand coordination, but then I wasn't playing over 700 when I quit when I was a teenager. I was playing probably in the high 6s, I would guess. But it wasn't until I was over 25 years old, my brain had already developed, that I decided that I wanted to play over 700 and came back to pool and started playing. And so through that process, that journey was never about fundamentals for me. It was about work, putting in work and trying to learn how to get better. And it was really clunky and it was very inefficient and it was very painful. And I got there, but it was clunky, inefficient, and painful. And so as I moved forward over with my game, and I got it over 700 and had some good experiences and things happening and kind of reached some goals and some benchmarks and got some things done that I want to try to accomplish. Well, then I quit again, okay? And for like personal reasons that I've kind of talked about in the past. And then I came back to it about 4 or 5 years ago. And when I came back to it to be a student. I came back to learn the game. I wanted to learn the game. I just didn't care about results, and I didn't care about, I just didn't care about competing. I didn't care about results. I didn't care about anything like that because I couldn't, because I was like an addict that couldn't handle that. So I let go of it to protect myself, my family, and to have a higher quality of life, and it worked, right? Because now I 20% results focused and 80% process focused. And I developed this whole system of approaching pool over the last 4 years, and I've really refined it over the last 2 years. And so here we are. And part of that process has been diving into my fundamentals. And it hasn't been, gosh, from the outside, it feels like, man, I'm so up in my fundamentals and like mentally, and it's distracting or whatever, but it really isn't, because I just did a training video, part 2 on chicken wing. And basically what I what I explained is that I care about my fundamentals, but I want to improve them, but just within a tolerance, basically, so that I can move forward. Okay. So if a person has something fundamentally wrong that I see, it's important that they fix it. Okay. one thing that people do wrong is on the rail, they put their hand here and hit down on the cue ball. Well, that could be considered a biomechanics or a fundamental thing. I need to have that cue level when I'm shooting off the rail, because as I hit down on it, I can really hurts my accuracy and creates unwanted side spin and things like that. So it's important. Same thing with, like, there are certain things I talk about fundamentally with people. It's like how they stand, some of the looseness and the angles of their stroke. And it is important. It's like, here's the thing with fundamentals, okay? If you're a kid, and like I was, and you have great eye-hand coordination and you're able to hit thousands and thousands and thousands of shots because you got, messed up programming in your head, in my case, or you're just super present and like a tremendous athlete and everything's positive and great and you don't have any messed up haywire stuff in your head that makes you just organically, naturally, holistically, beautifully want to hit shots, that's fine too. For me, I was a screwed up kid that just could hit thousands of shots because I had to be the best at whatever it was that I was doing, or get to the top of the food chain, to fill my hole. So side story there, sorry. What I'm saying is, because we're not that as adults, right? Because we're not that, fundamentals are important because they can help cut down that time of hitting balls, right? The same reason why when I train people, I say it's very important that you hit the right shots, because if you hit the wrong shots, you burn clock. So one of my students that recently came to me says, I play 4 hours in the afternoon and 4 hours in the morning, and I'm completely stuck and I'm frustrated and whatever. And I'm like, man, you could just hit a half hour or 45 minutes correctly in the morning and an hour or 45 minutes. You could just save, 6 hours of your life if I showed you what to correctly do and how to correctly do it, because we did have to do some mechanics things with him. So we make the mechanical adjustments. They're just to get him to where he's comfortable, where he sees the benefit of it, okay? And then we build out how to train and what to train. But having the mechanics is important in that you got to get them like close enough. So I would say mechanics being close enough is important and useful. And if you have flaws that are obvious, meaning like a big twist out, or a really bad cue angle, or a really wobbly bridge, or something, it needs to be like stabilized, or your stance is crossed up. All these fundamentals are important to have a stable base. So they are like really important, and they're sort of everything, because as you come through the cue ball consistently off to the side with spin, it's going to affect your aim. It's going to affect your ability to pocket a ball. So there's some people I have that consistently come out and they can't come on the center line. One of the students I have cannot come down on the center line in the cue ball. So if this is center, they're always off to the right a half a tip. And so I'm like, okay, we got to get them to go over to the left, and then we have to readjust their aim so it meets that center strike, because then there will be less side spin and a more accurate strike, and it matches the aim. So that's like a fundamental thing that she's doing incorrectly that we have to work through in order to increase her aim and her ball pocketing and her cue ball accuracy and her strike. So the fundamentals is everything for her in a certain way, because if I tell her she's in her 60s, and if I tell her in her 60s, just use your flaw and move forward with your stroke, she's going to have to build around that flawed stroke, and she's only playing like 2 or 3 hours a week in training. So it's just, she doesn't have enough time. If she was 14 years old and had that flaw in her stroke and slept under the pool table like Keith McCready and had something where she could hit thousands and thousands of shots every day, she could work through that flaw. But when you're playing 2 to 3 hours a week and you're in your 60s and you want to get better, you don't have that time, okay? So it is important to work on the mechanics and improve those mechanics for her so that she can improve more efficiently, okay? So in that way, mechanics are everything. And in some ways, mechanics are nothing, because once you get to a certain point of proficiency and you have your mechanics sort of down, and it's not something that I would encourage anybody to obsess about, mechanics, I just think it's part of playing pool. It's biomechanics, okay? That means we pay attention to it. We learn what's correct biomechanically, and then we pay attention to it in our stroke and in our game, and we watch a little bit of film of ourselves, and we get some coaching, and we figure out our biomechanics, and we just try to improve them as part of our process of puzzle solving, right? And then we have physics. That's how the balls react, the cue ball and the object ball. And then we have geometry, meaning how do the angles work? And we're just biomechanics, physics, and geometry, and then finally the mental game. So those are the 4 components of pool. Oh, and strategy, we have to understand strategy, right? So 5 components, there's maybe more, but those are some really good, solid, strong components, and that's what we work on. And as such, mechanics are extremely important. Some are more important for others and less important, more important for some and less important for others. When people come to me with mechanics, when people come to me for a lesson, and I ask them, I say, do you play bar tables? Do you play big table? And if they tell me they exclusively play bar tables, biomechanics, mechanics, fundamentals, they go down the list for me. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna show you some obvious stuff. I don't want you jamming down on the ball. I don't want you to have a loose bridge. I don't want you to have a bad stance. I want you to have some mechanics. Your fundamentals, I want them at least base decent. But then we're just going to have you learn how to pocket balls, hit shots, how the cue ball works, and then patterns, right? 8 ball's a lot about patterns and decision making and stuff. So I will not spend a ton of time and die on the hill of fundamentals with a bar table player because it's less important. On a big table, it's more important, right? So if somebody says, I want to be the best player I can be, and it's going to be on a big table, I'm going to say, well, we're going to have to look at your mechanics and make sure your mechanics are in order. Now, there are people with poor mechanics that play big table pool. I just told you the 750 guy plays world-class pool on a 9-foot table, but he didn't go to a coach when he was in his 40s or 50s and say, I want to play 750. He did all that, over decades, right? And so, but if a person comes to me and they're later in life, they're not even if they're a teenager, well, I would still go down the mechanics path on a 9-footer because it's really important to have good mechanics, because hitting, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to say mechanics are more important on a 9-footer because there's more challenge, right? The pockets are often tighter. There's more space to cover. Hitting a draw shot from 2 feet away versus 7 feet away is a big deal. You barely have to hit a draw shot on a table from 7 feet away on a 7-foot table because you'd be froze. So it's just like there are certain components that a 9-footer brings that means that your fundamentals need to be stronger, right? And so when I'm working on people and they play a bar table and they come to me and they say, my max draw is 3 diamonds. I'm like, sheesh, you almost can play bar table pool like that and just slug the ball around. But then I ask them, do you want me to show you some stuff about mechanics and how it works? And it's going to be kind of fundamental stuff. And then I go through it and I let them choose. Do you want to learn how to effortlessly draw the ball 5 to 7 diamonds? Or do you want to just slug the ball 4? I mean, it's up to you, because it's your money, it's your time, it's your path, it's your journey. I'm not going to force anybody that plays on a bar table to have perfect fundamentals, or I'll encourage it, but it's up to them. You don't have to have as good of fundamentals on a bar table. So I just go, okay, that's how I look at bar tables, fundamentals, I guess, big table versus bar table, and just some overall thoughts on it. But yeah, that's it. So, and then there's people that just go too far down the path of fundamentals. Okay, I've worked with people that believe that their fundamentals are holding them back. When I watch and I'm like, that is probably like number 6 on their list. Okay, and the problem is a lot of people, especially like beginner-ish players within the first 2 years, they go down this fundamental rabbit hole, and I've watched them hit shots and hit shots and hit shots thinking they're developing a pool game, and they've burned off 2 years of their life trying to have this perfect stroke, but then when you put the balls on the table, they have no idea how the cue ball works, the angles, the position, the play, the everything. And I'm not dogging them or anything. I'm just like, well, that's a mistake, right? Like, that's too far down the rabbit hole of fundamentals. It's just one of the components of pool, and it's not everything, but it is really important. Okay, and for me as a player, right? So I come back from Derby last year, and I had 2 problems when I went out to Derby that I realized after I got back. And I'm like, okay, I didn't prepare enough. Fine. And fundamentally, I had some flaws, meaning my process was flawed. I was not staying locked on the object ball. okay? And then since then, I've noticed I got a little flicky thing going on. And then I'll look back at this video, or not this video, but the last Chicken Wing 2 versus Chicken Wing 1, and I'm gonna look back and see, and people are gonna look at it and help me. They'll review, my coaches will jump into the comments and help me. But I'm just gonna look at some of that fundamental stuff, those straight stroke things, you know, because part of it is if I lock on the object ball and I am forward of the cue ball, that sort of fundamental stuff is good enough for me now where I can usually get it done. So I didn't leave Derby thinking, oh, I have a fundamental flaw, other than I had a flaw, I didn't have a stroke flaw in Derby. I felt like I had a connection to the object ball flaw, which is sort of a mental flaw, because I can practice to be connected to the object ball and be in front of the cue ball. I can practice that. I just need to practice it over time. And I knew what was happening when I was there, and I was just so ill-prepared, meaning I hadn't played enough pool before I left, that I kind of figured it out when I got there. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, sucks, but I'm just gonna have to go home and try to build this out. And then I also was honest about it. And I'm like, well, there's shots I don't know. Okay, banks in one pocket. I don't know all the shots in banks and all the shots in one pocket. And so I have to work on my strategy and my shot selection and my execution of shots. First, I gotta learn what shots I need to get better at by hitting shots, and then I need to improve all my shots, and then I also need to learn new shots, right, and get better with my cue ball. And so there was like some things there too. But I guess what I'm saying is I didn't sit there and think, oh, it's all about my fundamentals. I'm like, no, there's a lot of components to the game. There are some things I need to look at with stroke flaws and things and fundamentals like locking on the object ball. But being forward of the cue ball, that's kind of more of a fundamental process thing. But a lot of it too was there was some just hitting more shots and that kind of stuff too. And then being more prepared, right? Like just need to practice more and train more. And that's why I started the channel, so I can do that. And here we are, so it's good. But yeah, so I just want to talk a little bit about fundamentals and where I stand in fundamentals. And one of the people in the comments asked me about fundamentals and process and all that stuff. And all I can answer is I'm 80% process and 20% results. And I'd say fundamentals are something that I work on as part of my overall package of improvement, okay? So if you watch my videos, you'll see that even when I talk about fundamentals, like meaning, am I coming through straight on Chicken Wing 2? I'm actually talking about the cue ball, and I'm actually talking about the reaction of the cue ball and the speed that I'm stroking at and things like that. I'm also thinking, am I behind the cue ball or in front of the cue ball? I'm working on many components of my game, not just am I coming through straight. That's what I see a lot of people working on when they're sitting here and hitting these straight back and forth shots. Like, okay, it's really cool to hit right over the dot, back over the dot, and back to the nameplate, or back to my tip, you know? And it's like, yeah, that's cool, and that helps somewhat, but that's like a 5-minute warm-up, but I've seen people do that for an hour or two, and I've seen people do it every day for 6 months for an hour or two, and I'm not making fun of them. I'm just saying that is we only have so much time to do this. And one thing that you could take away from this video is that there is no one thing that we need to do about fundamentals or not fundamentals or whatever. It's like, this is an overall process game, and it's like, let's just figure out what parts of the process are happening, and then work on those process parts when we're completely present. And once in a while, I say whack-a-mole, once in a while something will pop up where I'm like, ooh, I need to give this a little more attention, or I need to give that a little more attention. That's totally fine. So I don't even know if I answered your question. I guess hopefully I did. But anyways, I think that's about it. I'm going to get down I'm going to do some of these podcasts. This will be podcast 1, fundamentals, and kind of a chat on it. And then I'll just keep training, and I really appreciate you guys, and I like how much engagement I'm getting. I mean, I love it, and I love to see how fast it's growing, and I feel appreciated. This is great. It's important to feel appreciated. That's why I tell you guys I appreciate you guys all the time, because I know what it means to me to be appreciated. And so I feel appreciated through this new channel, and And I have an appreciation for you guys because you guys are inspiring me to practice and think about stuff and come up with things and for my game and try to improve. I'm trying to improve, right? So, and you guys are helping me. So thank you. We'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.